Good evening. It is Friday, April the 14th, about 6:30 p.m. This is Shay Gibson with Weather Flow and Sail Flow. This goes out to the Sperry Charleston Race Week 2016. Let's talk about winds and weather for the next couple of days. We'll talk a little bit about what happened today. Mainly the feature that we have going on is this blocking high to the north. We have low pressure out here to the west. We have low pressure developing out in the Atlantic Ocean, and that completes what we talked about last night as being the Omega block. And the Omega block is sitting firmly in place with this undulating front to our south. This has created an area of moisture and rains today over our area. There's some other features going on aloft. We had a jet stream from west to east pushing some clouding from the west over us, and then also now we have a wedge that's driving that surface flow down along the coastline. So we got caught up in the middle of this, and so we have some mixing of layers up high, and some of that moisture created some additional feed, and then we ended up getting rained out for most of the morning and then through the early afternoon. Still seeing some spotty showers now, but if we look at the GRE on radar, we can get a better idea of what's going on here. And we can see this feeder trough coming in off the Gulf Stream. This is along the Charleston bump offshore. It's a subsurface topographical feature, but it definitely marks where the warmer waters ride up on the shelf here. And when we get cool air mixing down over these warmer Gulf waters, it creates a line of thunderstorms and moisture. These are frequently go off with thunderstorms, but as far as right now, it's training right into the coastline. So we're seeing some of that residual. Some of the rains and showers are actually switching up from east to west versus the other way around. So looking at our upper sounding analysis from the weather balloon from this morning, we see this upper flow up above the 500 millibar range, which is 18,000 feet. We get up to 300 millibars, about 26,000 feet, and then we start to see this westerly upper flow that would be pushing higher cloud tops over us, but not so much anymore because these winds are relaxing all down in this area, becoming variable at the lower levels. So we're not seeing so much of that anymore at the lower to mid levels. If we look at the jet stream analysis, we can see the little bit of streaking from the west going on right here. This was a little bit more prominent last night and into today with the westerly mid to upper level flow. That's since backed off, and if we look at the GRE on radar, we can still see a little bit of that westerly upper push coming in across the Mississippi and Alabama area. That's starting to slack off, and all this moisture here is starting to fizzle away because there isn't any flow coming in across from the Gulf of Mexico, but we still do have that feeder trough coming in off the ocean as of right now. So let's take a look at the SPC meso analysis. This is what happened today, and we're seeing it again right now. We have a little bit of short wave. This is called positively tilting short wave offshore. This is what happened earlier, and it actually went all the way up to here and bent our winds down from the northeast. So the winds tend to bend around these short waves when they come closer to the coastline. This does happen quite a bit when we have an extended northeast wedge that wants to go east-northeast. Sometimes we get this lifting of moisture up from the south, and that's what happened today. That's why the winds cut off and most of the gradient remained offshore just to the north of that short wave. So let's take a look at data scope for Charleston, and here's what we have right now. We have 18 knots in the harbor, and we saw those numbers come up today. A little bit right around 3 o'clock p.m. the numbers really came up. The gust lines came up to about 27, 28 knots. We saw some averages right around 20 to 24 knots at times, and then it's sort of holding right now around 18. Now Isle of Palm saw 28 knots right after 2 o'clock p.m., so that was the first indication that the gradient had built back into the coastline once that short wave released. So that's to be expected for the rest of the night. We'll probably hold these gradients somewhere between 17 and 21 knots through the entire evening. Let's take a quick look at rain, and we'll come right back to that. Now the WPC keeps the rain off of our coastline along that wedge. It tends to straighten it out a little bit more as time goes on, and that westerly push from the upper atmosphere relaxes a little bit, so that keeps the rain off of our coastline. So we'll have to wait and see how that does. If that happens, we could get some spotty sunshine tomorrow during our continued northeast wedge, and then that would bring up the sea breeze indications all over again. So let's take a look at the details, and let me blow this up just a little bit. Let's talk about what the models are showing for guidance. So here we are for tomorrow morning. We're looking at mid to upper teens. Some of these models I think are a little bit high, especially on a north-northeast flow, looking at the Isle of Palms Pier. I want to take a look at what we have for the harbor. So let me go back to Fort Sumter front range light and run all those details. Bear with me here. Select all. Now tomorrow I'm betting that the harbor is going to be slightly less than what's going on the beaches. So we're seeing right now, we're seeing some indication that the models are keeping it northeast pretty much through into tomorrow morning, and then they're keeping about mid-teens values. Now I'm thinking we'll probably have low to mid-teens in the morning when we get started, and then that'll slowly build towards mid-teens late morning, and then as we get into the afternoon, that's when things could turn on, especially if we get some spotty sunshine coming through the clouds. That east-northeast sea breeze will turn on and the winds will come up. But for right now, I think I'm gonna put peak values in the harbor at about 16 to 20 knots tomorrow afternoon. In the morning time, we'll probably see low to mid-teens and then slowly build towards that number. And as we get into Sunday, the northeast wedge continues, but the speeds start to fall off, and that's when we start to see basic overall speeds falling to the low teens marks and possible mid-teens peaks during the peak heating of the day around 12 to 2 p.m. So that's going to be pretty much what I'm showing for the wind report for the next 2 days, and we'll take a look at it tomorrow morning. I'll update it in the SailFlow apps, and you can see it there. And the new one goes out at 7 p.m. tonight, so be sure to check that, and then recheck it for 7 a.m. tomorrow morning on the update. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.